Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday. I hope all is well and you started the week well, and if you're over here in the UK that you managed to get the school run, your journey to work, whatever it is this morning. I hope you got it done safely because it is pretty cold, icy and snowy out there. I know the school run for me was not much fun, but I managed to get home in one piece, managed to get the kids there in one piece as well, which is obviously the most important thing. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about football, shall we? Big week coming up. World Cup semi-final week. No England, of course. But still exciting week nonetheless. The final fast approaching on Sunday. From that point onwards, it is going to be all eyes on the Premier League. Arsenal playing twice this week, of course, playing tomorrow against AC Milan over in Dubai in the Dubai Super Cup before returning home, and then they have the big friendly against Juventus on Saturday night. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there for that one because I've got a bit of holiday to come up over the Christmas period, so I'll be at home in the warm with my kids, my family, so I won't be at the Emirates on Saturday, but I will be there, of course, on Boxing Day for the big game against West Ham when the Premier League does return. I'll look forward to that Milan game a little bit later on in this video. Look at the latest team news, look at who might feature. Oleksandr Zinchenko has been speaking as well, so we'll see what he's had to say. But I'm going to start today's video on the sort of latest transfer stuff. We are fast approaching January, and that's all beginning to heap up, not just with Arsenal, but all the clubs in the Premier League. Lots of speculation and rumours doing the rounds. Reports this morning from the Oracle himself, David Ornstein, over at The Athletic, been talking a little bit more about Arsenal's interest in Mykhaylo Mudryk, which we all know, a player Arsenal are very keen on, have been watching for some time. David's reported today that he believes that Mudryk is desperate to make the move to Arsenal in January, and that he is the priority target for Arsenal this coming winter window. And it's an interesting one at Mudryk because all the talk from Gabriel Jesus being injured has been, are Arsenal going to go out and sign a striker, sign a replacement for Jesus? And I did a video on this last week explaining why I didn't think it was necessarily that sort of obvious that Arsenal were just going to go for a striker, because the priorities for Arsenal going into this window have always been the winger, Mudryk, and potentially a midfielder. And just because Jesus is going to be out for a couple of months, for a few months, in my mind, I didn't think it was necessarily going to mean that Arsenal were going to go out and just decide, let's put those plans to one side in terms of what we already had planned for the winger and the midfielder, and let's just focus on a striker. It never felt like that's something Arsenal would do, because they don't really panic in this situation, not now anyway, not the sort of the way they work and the planning that goes in place when it comes to transfer windows. We saw it last January when Aubameyang went. They didn't go out and rush and panic and just bring someone in just for the sake of it, fill up a place in the squad with a player they didn't really actually want, but they just thought, oh god, we better do it because Orba's left. They waited, and in the summer they went and got Gabriel Jesus, who was the player they always wanted to be that central striker. So I'm not sure, again, they would just go out and replace Jesus with a light-for-light striker just because he got injured. It feels much more Arsenal-esque, basically, in the way they now operate with Edu and Arteta, that they'll just think, you know what, he's going to be back in a few months, we'll carry on doing what we're going to do, we'll go out and try and buy the player that we want to buy in the position that we want to buy, and we'll wait for Jesus to come back. And that could well be the option. If you go out and sign Mudryk, for example, I'm not saying they're going to, but if they do manage to get a deal done for him, then suddenly you've got another winger in the books. You've got a player who can score goals from out wide. We've seen what he's been doing with Shakhtar, but you've also gives you the option then of moving Martinelli into the centre if you want to, because you can play Mudryk on the left. You can have Martinelli as a central striker, and that just feels a little bit more like what Arsenal will do, or the way they like to operate now. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if something like that were to happen. Obviously, there's a lot to go between now and then. You got, we're not even in January yet. We've got Shakhtar, who have been very public in how expensive it will be for someone, Arsenal or someone else, to sign Mudryk this summer. The president, I think, everyone's been talking, saying, look, 100 million, this is what City paid 100 million for Jack Grealish, that sort of thing. United paid whatever they paid for Anthony, so Mudryk must be worth all that. Whether Arsenal would spend that sort of money, I don't know. It just feels like a lot of money for Arsenal to pay. But interestingly, in David's piece in The Athletic this morning, which he tweeted out, if you go and read it, it's a really great transfer piece, not just about Mudryk, but about lots of players who are involved in the World Cup who could potentially be on the move at some point. and he said that there's a kind of belief around people close to the deal that maybe that he wouldn't cost quite as much as what Shakhtar publicly are saying at the moment. So we'll wait and see. Look, I'd be really excited by Mudryk. I think he's a fabulous talent. He's a player that I've spoken about it before, who the first time I ever saw him was playing for Shakhtar against Madrid in the Champions League a few years ago. And I just flicked it on randomly. I think it was one of the early kickoffs that day in the Champions League. And I flicked it on randomly, watched it for a little bit. And there was just this blonde-haired kid over on the left wing, who every time he got the ball, just the way he ran with it, you just immediately caught your eye, because he was his ability to run with the ball, his low centre of gravity, his pace, his movement, his dribbling ability, everything about it. You just thought, wow, who is this kid? And I had no idea. And I had to Google him straight away. I was like, Shakhtar number, whatever number he had on the back of his shirt, I can't remember. And it came up who it was, and it was Mudryk. And I remember I tweeted about it at the time. I was like, who is this Mudryk? He looks like a hell of a player. And then every time I'd seen him since then, he's just always caught the eye again. And he's really matured in the last couple of seasons. Certainly in the last season, we've seen what he's done this season in the Champions League. It absolutely feels like the time is right for him to move. He said it publicly. His agent said it publicly. I think Shakhtar wouldn't stand in his way as well, because they kind of, as much as they would like him to stay, they kind of know that his stock now is so high, and it's time for him to move on and head to one of the sort of European giants to really kick on in his career. I would love for it to be Arsenal. We'll have to wait and see if they can get the job done when it comes to him, if Shakhtar are willing to negotiate slightly. And it feels like this is the window that Arsenal have to do something a little bit special. It feels like they need to put out a bit of a statement. They've lost Jesus, which is a blow. They're in a fantastic position because of their form at the start of the season. They're never going to have a better opportunity to really compete for a title than they are right now. It just feels like if you've got a chance to do something in January to really lift the squad, to lift the fan base, just to galvanise everyone, you've really got to take it. And I'm sure that's a message that Mikel Arteta will be giving to Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke. They went over to the States a couple of weeks ago. They spent time there. Edu was there as well. Tim Lewis was there. They were all together. There would no doubt have been transfer planning involved in all those meetings they were having together. It would have been crazy not to have been. And hopefully Arteta can really convince the Kroenkes to free up some money somewhere and to back them. We've seen in the last couple of summer windows, the Kroenkes have done it. They have found money from wherever it is. Whether it's theirs or not remains to be seen. But, they have found money for Arsenal to spend. And if they could do that again in January, just with a couple of additions to galvanise the squad, to strengthen the squad, to really give Arteta the tools to try and compete with Manchester City over the second half of the season, and it would be a huge, huge boost to everyone. And the more you watch Mudryk, you just think he is a special talent, a real player. It could be like the Jose Antonio Reyes type signing in the 03-04 season that kicked Arsenal on and just gave him that extra little bit of quality in the second half of the season when needed to step up and score goals. And, Jose did that, especially at the end when he scored to keep the Invincibles run going away at QPR, away at Portsmouth. The goals against Chelsea in the FA Cup, obviously, and maybe Mudryk could come in, but we'll wait and see. We're a long way off that yet, but still exciting news nonetheless this morning from David over at The Athletic. Okay, so looking ahead a little bit to the Milan game tomorrow, team news-wise, it'll be interesting to see what exactly Arsenal are going to do in that one. Thomas Partey's back training, Ben White's back training, Matt Turner's back training. Will they all be involved? I think they certainly could be, but I imagine it'll be off the bench maybe in the second half if that is the case. Granit Xhaka doesn't look like he will be involved. He did go straight from the World Cup, obviously, to Dubai, but Arsenal gave him a bit of time off when he's been there, so I think he's been with his family. I don't think he's been training. That might well start today over there. He might start training with the squad this week, but whether he goes straight into the game on Tuesday, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, knowing Granit Xhaka, he absolutely will want to, but maybe Mikel will just hold him back a little bit, just let him have a couple of training sessions with the squad over there and then bring him back a few more training sessions this week at London Colney before the game against Juventus on Saturday. So they're the players who have obviously gone from the World Cup. I'm not sure about the latest ones. Martinelli, Tomiyasu, they're all going to start training this week, but I don't know if they've flown to Dubai. I haven't heard that they have. I haven't seen that they have. It'll be. I mean, Arsenal literally fly out pretty much straight after the Milan game tomorrow. So you almost think, is it worth flying them over basically for one or two training sessions and then flying them back it doesn't, if they haven't already gone, it kind of feels like it's a bit pointless. Maybe it's just be better for them to be training back at London Colney this week, today, tomorrow, and then when the rest of the squad arrive, they can just join in with training for them and then potentially feature on Saturday against Juventus. So I think it's probably a lot more unlikely the likes of Martinelli, Tomiyasu, but certainly Xhaka, possibility he plays, and then White, Turner and Partey, I think will certainly be involved in the game tomorrow, one way or the other. In terms of who starts in that game, you think it's probably going to be very, very similar to the side we saw line up against Lyon in the first match. Whether Turner comes in for Hein, we'll have to wait and see. But, like I said, I think we'll probably see Partey and White maybe from in the second half when maybe makes a few changes. I'm not sure you'll throw him straight into starting 11, but it all depends on their fitness. Ben White hadn't trained for a while because of what happened with England, how he left early. He's been away on holiday, so he might want to have a couple of training sessions extra before going straight into a starting 11. So I think you're probably looking at a very similar sort of side. No Zinchenko yet. He's still injured. I'll speak about him a little bit right at the end of this video because he's been doing he's been doing some media stuff ahead of the game, but he's not going to be involved tomorrow. So imagine it'll be Kieran Tierney at left back again. So I think you're probably looking at Cedric at right back, the same two centre backs, which is going to be Gabriel and Holding, and then Tierney at left back. Probably El Neni again, Holding, Sambi and Martin Odegaard in the centre, and then you look at Vieira, Nelson and Nketiah as the sort of forward line, the three-man forward line. Then with potentially Ben White and Thomas Partey, those sort of players coming on in the second half, as well as the whole host of the youngsters that we saw. So I imagine that's going to be the start in and around the starting 11, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Okay, so as promised a little bit, if you haven't seen these quotes from Zinchenko, he's been speaking about his fitness and his injury, and this is what he had to say. He said, I have a little muscle tightness, but I'm nearly there, so don't worry about it. Obviously, I'm working hard to get my fitness back and to be with the team as quickly as I can. It's a worse feeling, to be fair, for every footballer to be out of the team. And yeah, in the last couple of months, I struggled a lot, but I hope everything is in the past now, and I'm fully focused and excited for the rest of the season. Word is that he should be. Arsenal are very much hoping that Zinchenko is going to be all right for the West Ham game on Boxing Day. So obviously he's not going to be involved tomorrow. Whether the game on Saturday comes a little bit too early for him, we'll have to wait and see. But he certainly should be all right for the West Ham game. That's what our Arsenal are aiming towards. And we've seen before that Mykhaylo isn't worried, isn't scared about throwing Zinchenko straight back in. If he is fit, he tends to play. So, if he does pass whatever fitness checks he needs to pass, and I'm sure he'll be involved against West Ham, which is going to be a big boost because he's obviously clearly a very important player, and Mikel Arteta really rates him. He's been speaking about Gabriel Jesus as well, and the injury. He said he's been in touch with Gabriel, and he said, I've said to him already that we're all behind him, we're all supporting him. Of course, it's a big miss for our team, and the impact of what he's had on the club has been amazing. I've known him for a while. He's a big warrior, and I'm 100% sure that he'll be back much stronger. Fingers crossed that absolutely is the case. So good stuff from Zinchenko. Obviously a bit of a shame that he's still not being able to play at the moment, but hopefully he'll be available for the game against West Ham, and who knows, between now and then hopefully he can use his time getting on the phone to Mudryk and convincing him to getting his agents to sort out this deal pretty quickly and getting him to the Emirates. So we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we'll have two Ukrainians at the Emirates at the end of the January transfer window. But we'll wait and see on that. Exciting times ahead, no doubt, as the transfer window looms large. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Appreciate your time. As always, please do have a very good start to your week, and I'll be back to speak to you tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye-bye.